Jones, and we would like to thank you for watching Bethesda House of Prayer TV. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel at Bethesda House of Prayer TV and follow us on Facebook at Bethesda House of Prayer. Thank you, and may God continue to bless you.
Bethesda House of Prayer. Bethesda is a church for non-traditional worshipers, a church designed for those who love God's Word. Would you like to attend a church where believers and non-believers can choose to worship together? A church where cultural differences does not get in the way of God's message. We invite you to be our special guest. Our services begin 9 a.m. on Sunday, located at 7601 Westbank Expressway, Suite B, Marrero, Louisiana. For more information, contact us at 504-348-0132.
Hi, this is Lady Gwen Jones, and we would like to thank you for watching Bethesda House of Prayer TV. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel at Bethesda House of Prayer TV and follow us on Facebook at Bethesda House of Prayer. Thank you, and may God continue to bless you.
Cupbearer and consultant, and he was down and he was low, and the king noticed it, and Nehemiah went into deep prayer and prayed and asked God to give him the capacity, the tools, the ability to deal with what was going on in Jerusalem, and he asked God to give him favor with the man who had the ability to give him favor. And remember, we talked about how you have to, one, admit your transgressions, seek guidance from God, and be diligent in what you do. And we want to finish that up today. And remember, the key components of the Nehemiah principle, they're very simple. And it's so simple that we can make them complex. We have a tendency with our feeble little minds to take the simplicity and make it complex. The Nehemiah principle centers around four characteristics. You must be focused, you must be disciplined, you must be committed, and you must be diligent. Those four components are so key and so important in our everyday life and our everyday. I was watching the news last night, and it never ceases to amaze me how God allowed people within the scope of their capacity and His will to achieve things oftentimes that other people feel as though they can't achieve. And I was watching the news, maybe around 12 o'clock, and the blast came on that this young lady, Coco Gauff, I think her name is, had won the U.S. Grand Slam, and when everybody thought that the lady that she was playing against was too powerful, too strong, her serve, her backhand was great, and the 19-year-old kid who showed focus, who was disciplined, who was committed and diligent, won that Grand Slam. So all things are possible with God. Don't allow the feeble minds of men to dictate where you go or what you can do. Deacon Charles called me last night and told me about the Colorado team that won their second game and beat two perennial powerhouses over the last 2 weeks, and no one thought. In each one of those games, they were predicted to lose by as much as 20 points. And why am I showing you those examples? Because oftentimes, we allow our circumstances to define us. God wants us to redefine our circumstances. I'll say it again. We allow our circumstances to define us, where we were born, what education we have, who are our parents. That has nothing to do with your success. There's a point in life when your success is based upon the tools that God have allowed you to accumulate in your toolbox. Remember Nehemiah. Nehemiah was captive in a foreign country. Think about that. He didn't go around complaining that I'm a slave, I'm a victim. Nehemiah was serving in a foreign country. And through the blessing of God, through diligence, through commitment, he rose up to be the king's cupbearer. And more important than that, he rose up to become the king's advisor. So he grew from being a slave in captivity to the king's cupbearer to the king's advisor. So God allowed him to progress and redefine his circumstances. And God allowed him to be put in a position where he could go and fulfill the things that God wanted him to do. And the same thing happens to you and I. Because what happens is that if we don't allow ourselves to get distracted, see, don't allow the things that are unimportant to distract you. Don't allow those little bitty idiosyncrasies and little bitty things that people do and say to get you unfocused. And that's what we're going to see in Nehemiah this morning. That focus is so key. Focus is so important. Focus determines so much in our lives. Because what happens is that what you focus on is what you're going to concentrate your energy and efforts on. What you focus on is what you believe. Now, you can say what you want, but what you focus your energies and efforts in is what you believe. And then you see the results of it. And that's why it's so important for you and I to focus on the right thing. Now, what is the right thing? Only you and God know what it is. And we saw some things in Nehemiah the last time, and we need to recap them. Nehemiah didn't go around telling everybody what God gave him to do. The first mistake we make is we go tell everybody what God has put on our heart. And by nature, you don't realize people are envious and jealous. They're envious, and it's our nature. Simeon had no reason to be envy and jealous of Joseph, but yet he was. Simeon was Joseph's brother. He loved him. But there was envy and jealousy there. So you see, God even shows us inside of our families there can be envy and jealousy. Now, does that mean the person doesn't love you? No. Does that mean the person isn't going to look out for you? No. But there's oftentimes envy and jealousy among brothers and sisters. And that's why it's so important for you and I, no matter how well you think you know a person, no matter how much you think a person likes you, the most important thing that you can do is trust in God and keep what he has given to you. Keep what he has given to you. You remember Nehemiah the last time, he didn't go telling all the priests and all the workers and everything, this is what God has given me to do. No, he went out and he surveyed. He did what you and I don't do. You see, all of us want to be successful. And unlike Nehemiah, we don't deal with the prerequisites for success. If you're going to be successful, just like Nehemiah, you're going to see a little more this morning, you have to study. Stuff isn't going to just pour in your brain by metamorphosis. You have to study. You have to commit time and energy. Second thing, you have to collect data. It never ceases to amaze me, as I told you last time, how many times people have come to me over the last 30 years with a plan. Just a plan, something they just thought in their own head. They did no study. They did no research. They collected no data. When you come with a plan that has no focus, people are going to see it. And they're going to see it in the beginning. Because successful people know what to look for. So when you bring the little feeble plan that you think is the greatest thing in the world, that you've done no study and no preparation on, don't be dismayed or don't feel bad when people don't buy into your fantasy. Because if you haven't done the prerequisites, it's only a fantasy. We saw in Nehemiah the last time a commitment to excellence. You cannot be successful at anything unless you have a commitment of excellence. You're not going to be perfect, but you have to commit. You have to display excellence, are willing to work diligently. Now, people work all the time, but they don't work diligently. When you're diligent at something, that means that you focus in on it. You work on it. You concentrate on it. You analyze it. You look for where it went wrong, where it went right. And then you collect that data, and then you move forward, and then you outline a concrete plan. Then you outline a concrete plan. So you got to deal with the prerequisites. So that's what we saw Nehemiah did the last time. He dealt with all of the prerequisites. And then Nehemiah started to build that wall. And the last time we were together, we said it took Nehemiah 52 days. And remember, we showed you when Nehemiah asked the king and the queen, they asked him, how much time would it take? They didn't say you couldn't go. They wanted timetables. They wanted to be able to say, this is when you're leaving, this is when you're coming back. If you don't set any timetables, if you call a person and say, hey, man, we need to get together, discuss ABC, and you don't set a time and a date, what purpose is that call? If you don't set a time and a date, why did you make that call? Doesn't make any sense. And we saw in Nehemiah's prayer, he was specific to God about what he wanted. He was specific to God about what he needed. And those things came from his heart. So in the Nehemiah principle, you have to have timetables and goals, and you have to be specific. And you can't want to do 1,000 different things at one time. You got 1,000 different things on your plate. You ain't gonna get any of them accomplished. Because you got a little time here, a little time here, a little time there. You're too divided. So Nehemiah was focused on building that wall, and he starts that wall and he builds that wall in 52 days. Now that's the wall at Jerusalem. You remember in the the next thing that Nehemiah did, which you and I don't do, is Nehemiah picks the best and the brightest. You got to align yourself with people who are just as smart or smarter than what you are. And if you don't do that, you're going to find yourself always using time to rethink or redo things that people who didn't have the capacity to do, that was a part of what you were trying to do. Now that's hard. Nehemiah picked the best and the brightest of the tribe to go and build that wall. Now, when you pick the best and the brightest, you can't tie their hands. You can't tie their feet. What I mean by that is that you can't control their minds. And that's why they're the best and the brightest. And when you recruit those kind of people into your plan, the vision that God has given you, when you recruit innovative, creative people, you recruited them because they were innovative and creative. So when you come back and want to tie their hands because you can't fully understand what they're doing or how they're doing it, that cripples your plan. You can't recruit those kind of people and want to control them. Now you put goals and objectives in place and allow them to work within those goals and objectives, but you cannot micromanage super talent. You can't micromanage. You can macromanage, but you can't micro. So what Nehemiah did, he picked the best and the brightest to rebuild that wall. You remember I told you about this guy, Sandoval and Tobin. I said, don't forget these two names. You see, when you go about focusing on what God has for you to do, Satan's going to always come in the middle of it. And what Satan wants to do is to get you unfocused. What Satan wants you to do is to lose perspective, to become incoherent. And how does he do that? He's going to send his minions, and he's going to send these demons, these spiritual beings, and they're going to infiltrate people. And these people are going to come to you, and they're going to always try to figure out a way to get you unfocused. And what we're going to see in Nehemiah chapter 4 today and chapter 6, we're going to see how God teaches us how to deal with that. Nehemiah has built this wall, and they're working. Then watch what happens. The first thing, when you have a plan, when God has blessed that plan, when you're committed and you're disciplined and diligent, you're going to find the first thing Satan's going to do, he's going to send somebody at you to make fun of you or to criticize you. That's the very first thing he's going to do. He's going to send somebody at you to make fun of you or criticize you. But Nehemiah, unlike us, he stays focused. Let's go to Nehemiah chapter 4. And I want you to see it in God's words because this Nehemiah principle works. This Nehemiah principle works because God laid it out for you and I thousands of years ago. Go to Nehemiah chapter 4 and let's look at it. And let's just break it down and see God's principles in action. You see, God has given us the direction. Our fundamental problems is that we don't like to read the playbook. We want to read and look at and study everything but God's word. But God lays it out for you and I. Nehemiah chapter 4, verse 1. It says, when Sanballat heard that we were rebuilding the wall, he became angry and was greatly incensed. Now, why would he be mad about building the wall? What you don't know and what you haven't seen, you saw in chapter 3, the chaos that was in Jerusalem allowed certain people to flourish and be successful. You see, certain people can only flourish and be successful in chaos. That means everything is all confused, all kind of mess, all kind of humbug. Because when you have chaos and confusion, you lower yourself down to their level. So Sanballat and his compadres, they were prospering in Jerusalem in the chaos. The walls are torn down, they controlling the commerce, they controlling everything. So naturally, when Nehemiah comes back and God brings them to Jerusalem to rebuild the wall, they get angry, and they were not only angry, they were greatly incensed. See, when you get, like, you ever seen a person that's angry? When you incense, multiply that 10%. They are on fire, and they want to put something on you. Watch what he does. Sanballat, he ridiculed the Jews. Find fault, make fun of. When you are focused on the agenda that God has given you, and you just focus like radar, don't be surprised when people come and ridicule you and make fun of you. Because they can't see what God has for you. They can't see where God is bringing you. So they come there, not only ridicule him to face, but around everybody else. And in the presence of all the associates and the army of Samaria, look what he says. And just watch the words, and just pay close attention. What he says here. Sanballat, look what he says. What are these feeble Jews doing? You see, he's criticizing them and ridiculing them in the statement. When you say someone has a feeble mind, what does that mean? That you're off base. You don't know what you're doing. You're in outer space. Get that sad look off your face. I should have changed that lock and key so you wouldn't be back here coming to bother me. Oh, Lord. What are these feeble Jews doing? Watch what he says. Will they restore the wall? Now, Nehemiah and them have already gone forward restoring the wall. Remember, that's why they got angry. So they're not observing what's there. They're in their own world, and they're trying to figure out ways to ridicule and make fun of them. Will they restore the wall? Well, they almost finished restoring the wall. The only thing you see in chapter 3, they haven't put the locks on the gates. So he criticizes the very thing that they have accomplished. And that's what people will do with you. They're going to criticize the very thing that you accomplished, attempt to make fun of you, to ridicule you, to put you down. They want you to get unfocused. Look what it says. Then they go on to attract the essence of it, because remember those gates were used to bring the sheep in to do the different sacrifices. Will they restore the wall? Will they offer sacrifices? Remember, they had stopped offering sacrifices in Jerusalem. So he's now attacking the very essence of their culture. And people are going to come and attack the very essence of your culture. Your people are always lazy. Your people are always one day $1 short. Your people are never on time. Think about that. They're going to hit you and try to hit you in your culture and try to impact you and get you unfocused. because it's these little key words that incense you. These little key words that touch your subconscious mind. And these little key words make you become unfocused. So pay close attention to the words that people use and the things that they say. Can they bring the stones back to life from these heap of rubbles? Burned as they are? You know, these gates are all burnt up. They're all destroyed. All this material you're trying to use. How are you going to use this old beat-up material to rebuild these walls? Yet they have done it. And remember something. They know that King Artaxerxes gave Nehemiah access to the royal forest. They know King Artaxerxes gave Nehemiah everything that he needed. Remember we talked about it last time? The first unlimited line of credit in the history of the world. So King Artaxerxes had given Nehemiah everything he needs. But they're not focusing on that. They're focusing on getting Nehemiah unfocused. And how they're going to do that is ridicule you and make fun of you. Look what he says in verse 3. Then Tobin, the Amorite, comes in. That's his buddy. They've been making money in the chaos. Who was at his side and said, what are they building? Common sense. They're building a wall. Even a fox climbing up on it would break down these walls. So these walls, Nehemiah, you guys think you're building, the walls you think you're fortified, a fox couldn't stand on it. It's just designed to ridicule and make fun and get you unfocused. That's the key. You know how young guys get around and talk. I remember when we used to hang out in the dome, not in the dome, in the student center. We used to talk about how to get girls. And we developed this principle. You can reach any, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying we developed this principle. You can reach any girl if you can get her to emotionally respond. That is, emotional response that I like you, I don't like you, I hate you, get away from me. As long as you can solicit a response, an emotional response, then you can approach them some way, somehow. Maybe not that day. Now, I'm not saying that's right. You know, 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds come up with the craziest theories that you can come up with. But you know what? It worked pretty much that way. And so what they are trying to do now is get an emotional response from Nehemiah by criticizing him and making fun of him. But look what Nehemiah does, what we don't do. Look what Nehemiah does. Look at verse number 4. He hears the ridicule. He hears them making fun of them. He doesn't engage in it. Why engage in ridicule and people making fun of you when it ain't gonna matter anyway? Don't spend time on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and whatever else y'all got now. Responding to idiotic stuff, it ain't gonna make a difference anyway. Why respond to it? Just ignore it. If it doesn't impact you, ignore it. Because look what Nehemiah does. He ignores it. Look what he does in verse 4. He said, hear us, O God, we are despised. Now, he don't put it in his hands. He puts it in the hands of the Lord. Look what Nehemiah says. He ain't trying to go word for word with him. Remember, he's focused. He ain't going word to word with him. He has his team of committed, diligent people. And so how you react to the insults and the ridicule oftentimes will determine how the people around you react. You ever notice how children react the same way their mother and father react? It's subtle, and we don't see it immediately, but that child is going to react the way the mother and father react to those situations. So what Nehemiah does, he doesn't trade insults like you and I do. He doesn't get angry. He doesn't get dismayed. Look what he does. He goes to the Lord and he said, hear us, O God, for we are displeased. He asks God to turn their insults back on their heads. He said, God, see the very same thing they're trying to say about us, the very ridicule and all the things they're doing with us. God, put it back on them. See, you allow God to fight that battle for you. Because what they want to do is get you engaged in the nonsense. They want to get you unfocused. And what Nehemiah says, look, do not become unfocused. Allow their insults, allow their ridicule, allow all those things to go back on them. You see, we should not respond necessarily all the time to insults and criticism. Just move on. What difference does it make? Ask yourself this question. Is it going to make a difference? And if it's not going to make a difference, why deal with it? Why deal with it? Because all it's designed to do is to get you unfocused. And what Nehemiah does, he focuses on God so he doesn't get distracted. And that's what is so important for you and I. Because anything you focus on, if it's the ridicule, if they're making fun of you, that's what you're committed to. Now, you may not want to believe that. Ask yourself when you got into a debate with someone on one of the social platforms, and it went on for 2 hours. You texting them texting you. 2 days later, did it matter? No. A man convinced against his will is of the same opinion. You can't change anybody's opinion who they don't want to be changed. So why spend all your time dealing with it? You spend all your time trying to convince somebody that your opinion is right. And they believe in their heart that their opinion is right. And you know they are based on facts. Nehemiah knew that wall was built from a solid foundation. Remember, he got the king's forest. He just didn't get any wood. He got cedar from the king's forest. He got stones from the king's storage. He got everything that he needs, so he knew he had the right products. He knew he had the best craftsmen, because you see in chapter 3, he got the best of each family. So he knew that wall was solid. So he spent little or no time, because what they're trying to do is to cause you to become unfocused. Look what Nehemiah says in verse 6. So we rebuilt the wall to all of its reached half its height, for the people worked with all their hearts. See, they stayed focused because Nehemiah stayed focused. If Nehemiah would have got involved in the ridicule and the fun making, that's what would have happened to his people. You ever seen it? One person starts something, and the next person get in, and the next person get in, the next person get in, and the same thing happens on the other side. Now you got 100 people yelling and screaming at each other. Think about it. What Nehemiah did, he said, look, I'm going to stay focused. I have what I have in my heart, and this ridicule and criticism is not going to frustrate me. It's not going to anger me. I'm not going to allow them to engage in this process of unfocusing me. And when that don't work, when the ridicule and the making fun of you don't work, the next thing they're going to do is try to cause chaos. They're going to try to cause confusion. They're going to try to infiltrate your ranks. And I want you to see what Nehemiah did. Let's look at verse 7. I'm not making this up. This Nehemiah principle, I'm not making it up. It's right here in God's word. Watch what happens in verse number 7. Then Sanballat and Tobiah and the Arab, the Amorite, and the people of Ashdod heard that the repairs to Jerusalem wall have gone ahead, and the gaps were being closed, and they were very angry. Now look what they did. They all plotted together to come up and fight against Jerusalem and stir up trouble against it, causing chaos. So they could not compete with them building that wall because they were focused. So what people are going to do when they can't compete with you, they're going to cause chaos. They're going to cause all kind of confusion. They're going to cause all kind of problems. Girl, did you know such and such? Hey, bro, did you know he said this and they said that? And you notice they can always say they said. They ain't going to be specific. There's going to always be something remote that you can't check and validate. When someone tells you they said, your first question to them should be, Who is they? And your second question should be is that, oh, let's do this. Let's get sister such and such on the phone, or let all three of us go to lunch. Oh, no, girl, I don't want to do that because I don't want to be in the middle of it. Then why are you bringing this chaos to me if you want to be in the middle? Why are you telling me something that you want to be in the middle of? So they get angry and they sort of stir up trouble, and they sort of try to get Nehemiah's people unfocused because Nehemiah people are focused. Look at verse 10. Meanwhile, the people in Judah said that the strength of the labor is giving out, and that there's so much rubble that we cannot rebuild a wall. Now watch this. Verse 11. Also our enemies said, watch this, before they know it or see it, we will be right among them, and we will kill them and put an end to their work. That's why they wanted to do the chaos. That's why they wanted to cause the confusion. See, as long as Nehemiah and them were focused on that wall, and you're going to see in a minute, they couldn't touch it. Couldn't touch that. But the minute they would achieve their goal of getting them unfocused, they can infiltrate. When people get you unfocused, that's when they can infiltrate your life. That's when they can infiltrate whatever you're doing. Because they get you unfocused. As long as you are focused, they can't touch you. God is the God of protection and provision, and as long as you're focused, they cannot get near you. And they're going to plant all kind of poison seeds, and they're going to say everything that they can possibly say to turn people against you, and they're going to try to infiltrate you in every way that they can. But Nehemiah, unlike you and I, does what we don't do. Look at verse 13. Same chapter, verse 13. Nehemiah says, okay, you guys trying to cause this chaos? Y'all trying to infiltrate? I've trusted in God. I love God. I have a plan. But I'm just not going to sit here and let y'all try to infiltrate me. I'm just not going to sit here and let y'all try to cause problems for me. Watch what Nehemiah does. Remember I told you preparation is key? Anything that you prepare for, you'll be successful. Anything you prepare for, you will be successful. Therefore, I stationed some of the people behind the lowest point of the wall at the exposed places, posting them by families with their swords and spears and bows. After I looked things over, I analyzed it and studied it. I stood up and said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome, and fight for your families, your sons and your daughters, your wives, and your house. So Nehemiah, again, does what? Takes it to the Lord. He not only takes it to God, he prepares his people for the battle. He put them in place, and they're ready. So you have to pray and ask God for the allow the Holy Spirit to guide you and direct you. Ask God to allow you to be able to see the tools that he's already given you in your toolbox. You have to pray and ask God to allow you to stay focused, because what's going to happen, they're going to try to get you unfocused. And what Nehemiah does, he does this unique thing. And watch verse 15. When our enemies heard that we were aware of their plot and God had frustrated it, we all returned to the wall, each to our work. Focused. Watch verse 16. From that day on, preparation, diligence, half of my men did the work, while the other half were equipped with spears, shields, bows, and armor. So Nehemiah, he prayed to God for protection, but he prepared for it also. You see, we spend a lot of time, listen to what I'm saying to you. We spend a lot of time praying to God for things that God has already put in our toolbox that we never look at. And then we want to blame God when it don't happen. You see, God has prepared you for wherever he wants you to go. We don't look inside the toolbox. You have years and years of experience and encounters. You have mistakes that have happened in your life. You have positive things that have happened in your life. You've been around people who have been indifferent, ambivalence. God has prepared you with everything you need to get where you're trying to go. Our fundamental problem is that we don't read the playbook and we don't look at the toolbox. Look at verse number 19. Then he said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, I'm paraphrasing, this stuff y'all dealing with, it's insignificant to me. The stuff y'all talking about don't even make good nonsense, so I ain't going to deal with it. It don't make good nonsense. So if something doesn't make good, and I didn't say sense, I said nonsense. If something doesn't make good nonsense, why would you deal with it? The work is extensive and spread out, and we are widely separated from each other among the wall. Whenever you hear the sound of the trumpet, join us there. God will fight for us. You see, you have to stay focused. You have to stay committed. Discipline and focus is the key. All kind of stuff is going to come at you. When you're on your direction that God is sending you on, Satan's going to send everything in the world at you. And it's going to intensify because you're a believer. He's going to send all kind of minions at you to bring all kind of gossip, innuendo, chaos, to infiltrate your mind first, and to infiltrate the people around you. But you have to stay focused. Now, the third thing they're going to do, once they make fun of you, ridicule you, that doesn't work, then they're going to start to conspire against you. If nothing else works, they're going to start to conspire against you. They're going to start spreading false information about you. They're going to even pretend that they're trying to protect your interests. They want you to get focused in on the nonsense. But I want you to see what Nehemiah does in chapter 6. Nehemiah does something a little different than what you and I do. He remained focused. See, they couldn't make fun of him and criticize him. Now they're going to try to conspire against him, just to tear you down. See, Satan wants to tear you down. Satan wants you to get cuckoo, like a cuckoo bird. When you listen to all the nonsense, when you listen to all the innuendos, when you listen to all the gossip, you're going to go cuckoo. Junk in, junk out. They're going to start to conspire against you. Watch this, verse 1, chapter 6. When the word came to Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem, the Arab, and the rest of the enemies, that I had rebuilt the wall, and not a gap was in it. This wall was done in 52 days. Though up to the time I had not set in the doors, remember I told you I had set in the gates, Sanballat and Geshem sent a message to me. Come, let us meet together in the village on the plain of Ono. Now, you've been ridiculing me. You've been making fun of me. You've been trying to criticize me. Now, all of a sudden, you want to hold a powwow with me. Something don't seem right there. You see, when they can't get you by making fun of you, when they can't get you by criticizing you, the next thing they're going to do is try to infiltrate you. Sanballat and Geshem send me messages, come and let us come together in the village on the plain. Now watch what Nehemiah does, what you and I don't do. You got to stay focused. You got to stay disciplined. You got to stay committed. Look what he does. But they were scheming to harm me. So I sent messages to them with this reply. And this is the key. I am carrying on a great project and cannot come down. I'm not stopping for whatever you say. There's nothing you can say or do that's going to stop me from being focused on what God has given me to do and my plan of action, because what you're saying do not matter. Because if it's not going to help me glorify God, it's not going to help me prosper, it's not going to put me in a position to help somebody else, then why should I stop doing what I am doing to deal with your nonsense? Nehemiah quickly says, why should I stop and leave and go down to you? And watch this. 4 times they sent me the same message, and each time I gave them the same answer. You see, every time they come at you, you give them the same answer. No, I'm not stopping what I'm doing and coming and dealing with that nonsense that you're dealing with. They sent it to him 4 times. The 5th time, Sandoval sent his assistant to me. So now he's sending someone with dignity to him. Hey, man, I want you to realize that what I'm telling you is sound. I'm sending my number 1 guy to bring it to you. Then the 5th time, Sandoval sent an assistant to me with the same message in his hand with an unsealed letter in which was written. Remember I told you they're going to spread lies about you? It is reported among the nations, and Geshem said it true, that you and the Jews are plotting to revolt, and therefore you're building the wall. Now, Nehemiah knows in his heart that the king was touched by God to allow him to go back and build a wall. So he knows that. So he knows that this is a lie or either misinformation. Be careful of lies and misinformation that tries to redirect you. Moreover, according to these reports, you're about to become king. So he tells Nehemiah, look, you're doing all of this because you want to revolt against King Artaxerxes. You're doing all this because you want to be king. That's misinformation. That's distorted information. That's designed to get you unfocused. When you know differently, why let people come to you and give you misinformation and distorted information that you buy into because that's where your heart is? I'll say it again, that you buy into because that's where your heart is. When you know God is giving you a specific thing to do, just ignore it. Don't deal with it. They sent it to Nehemiah 5 times, and each time he rejected it. And look at what he says. Moreover, according to the reports, you're about to become king in verse 7, and have even appointed a prophet to make the proclamation in Jerusalem. So he said, you're not only plotting against the king, you created this false prophet to prophesy that you're going to be king. There's a king in Judah. Now, this report will get back to the king, so let us come and meet together. So he goes to Nehemiah and says, look, everything I've tried haven't worked, but I'm going to plant this distorted information. I'm going to plant this misinformation in your mind because I want to live rent-free in your mind and redefine you, redefine the circumstances. So he tries to plant this false information in Nehemiah's mind that Nehemiah, if all this gets back to the king, you're going to have problems, so you need to meet with me. And if you don't meet with me, all of this is going to get back to the king. Watch what Nehemiah does in verse 7. What you and I don't do. I sent him this reply. Nothing like what you are saying is happening. You're just making it all up in your own head. Pow! That's your fantasy. That's your illusion. That's stuff you've made up in your own head. I didn't say that. Nehemiah says it, and God allows you and I to be able to see it. Look what he says. Look at verse 8. This is so key to staying focused. This is so important. And we're going to finish this the next time because we don't have enough time to finish it this morning. This is the key to staying focused. Look what Nehemiah says what you and I do. When people come at you with all this crazy stuff, all this nonsense, stuff that you know don't make no sense, stuff that you know that's not true, stuff that you know is misinformation, don't let it infiltrate your mind and change you to force you to react the way that you know is not you. We got to do what Nehemiah did. Look what he does. Verse 8. This is so key, and this is so prophetic, and this is so good for you and me because we face all kind of nonsense every day. And all Satan is trying to do is get you unfocused. Look what Nehemiah says. And you should pray on this verse. You should meditate on this verse. You should ask God to give you illumination and revelation of this verse. I sent him this reply. Nothing like what you are saying is happening. I know what I've been doing. I know where God sent me. I know the provisions that God gave me. God had King Artaxerxes open up his treasury to me. God had King Artaxerxes open up his forest to me. God had King Artaxerxes open up his precious metals to me. God had King Artaxerxes send his army, a portion of his royal guard with me to protect me. So why in the world I'm going to listen to this nonsense that you conjured up in your own mind? Look what he says. Nothing like this you're saying is happening. You're making it all up in your own head. Remember we started out this service by saying, don't let Satan live in your mind rent-free, causing all kind of havoc, uncertainty, anger, fear, and doubt. All Satan wants to do is to live in your mind rent-free and allow you to become unfocused and focus on all sorts of nonsense that ain't gonna matter anyway. Ask yourself this question. Somebody told you something last year. Does it matter today? Because what they were trying to do is to get an emotional response out of you some way, somehow, to get you unfocused. And they wanted you to take you out of the spirit into the flesh. Because in the flesh, you're going to respond to all kind of nonsensical things. In the spirit, you're going to take it to God. And you're going to let God fight the battle. Do you receive that message? Let us all stand. We have a christening this morning, and the godparents, please come up, and the parents. While we're preparing for the christening, we're going to do the offering. We ask that those of you who have the capacity to give not grudgingly, not necessity, because God loves a cheerful giver. He's able to make all.
We want to thank you for being with us today. If this message has been a blessing to you and